So, hopefully we hear this one. Let's see, and what I believe I was trying to say. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, it's when we hit max height here with the knee. Watch the back leg. Max height, boom, we hit a buckle. And what that does is that kind of takes away from our actual drifting point, so it turns it almost into a false drift. And it really kind of messes up. So see where your weight is on your foot? It's really on that heel going back this way. I'm glad I'm redoing this because you're seeing a little bit more. So our weight gets stuck on our heel. When our weight gets really stuck on our heel, it makes it really hard for this backside to release, for these hips to release into a rotational velocity. So throwing is a linear rotational velocity movement. And when we get stuck kind of on this back heel like we still are, and now we kind of come, it's really hard to kind of roll into this hip opening towards the dish. So we never really get open towards the dish. And so when we land, let's go back a little bit, by the time we hit, we're still a bit closed off this way with the pelvis. So we never really got any pelvic rotational velocity. And then if we want to watch this, so what happens when we don't get pelvic rotational velocity? The hips are faster than the trunk, right? But if they're not doing what they should do, watch your upper half. The upper half now takes advantage. The upper half leads this rotation. And that's not a powerful move. That's stealing velocity and also straining the arm more. So when the upper half is dominant with that rotational movement instead of the hips, this is a slower movement, which is going to allow the elbow to beat the body, creating your release point way out front. So that release point is going to be way out front just because the hips never got going. The pelvis beat the hips. Pelvis is slower, and so the elbow leads way out front of the torso at ball release. And that's going to create lower velo. That's going to create more strain on the elbow. And ultimately, that's kind of a double whammy, right? Because we want to throw as hard as we possibly can with as less strain as we possibly can. And my big thing here is a lot of the stuff, what we really want to do is forget everything that I'm saying right now, because it's all about a feel. So we correct all this stuff with our first move. So if we can really kind of retrain ourselves to get our weight distribution on the right part of the foot, or at least teach it to roll through that part of the foot earlier, we're going to have much better timing of our hips releasing, and we're actually going to use the power that we have in our hips. So if our hips can release at a better time, we're going to end up landing in a much better position. We're going to have quote-unquote separation of the hips and trunk. Separation of the hips and trunk really just comes when you can induce rapid hip rotational velocity and the trunk is trying to keep up. Right now the trunk is just leading everything. So we want to fix all these issues with the first move is the biggie, right? So what we need to do, once we adjust this first move and get the weight distributed the right way, it's going to allow the hips to release, it's going to allow everything to sequence up the right way. I don't like to promise velocity, but more often than not, we get a little uptick in velocity and we get a little bit less strain on the arm. Alright, hopefully this one works, and hopefully you can hear what I'm saying in this video.